All right. Welcome to today's office hours. This is Mark Stepp. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve and your host for the day. So today we're going to, for the next few, and I hope that it doesn't get too old. If it starts getting old, I want you guys to just say, hey, Mark, this is getting old. But I want to show some of the benefits that you can use using webhooks. We'll also give plenty of time for other questions and stuff afterwards. But in this particular one, what I wanted to do yesterday, I got a message from one of our VAs, and she said, do we have any way of creating, or do you have any recordings or information on creating some under contract timelines? And at the time, I said no, but send me something that we can do, and we'll take a look at it. And I got into it real quick. And actually, what I did is I went out and I just did a Google of under contract timelines, real estate, and it came back with a bunch of different, like, Etsy designed, really cool looking designs of things. And actually, let me just do a real estate timelines. Let me just show you what I did. So I just did a quick search, real estate timelines, and it came back with a bunch of things. A lot of these are just Etsy, people are designing these things, but they look good. It's some of them better than others, but, and I didn't want to use an exact copy or anything, but what I did was decided, well, let's create something and just kind of go with it and show the creativity of what can be done in this. So what we're going to do is talk about webhooks again, and I want to make sure people understand what a webhook is. Webhook is just a web address. It's just a URL that you can send data to, and once it's sent, you can do something with that data. So if we look at this visually, and I used the same one before, but what it is if you take Realvolve, it has three main databases: the contacts, the properties, and the transactions. You can use a workflow action now to send to a webhook URL and have data sent to lots of different third-party services. And this is super, super cool, so that while in the middle of some workflow, you got some thing happening, you want something printed, created, sent, whatever, you can now do it within the system. And let's see here. There we go. So what you can do, I went out to Google Slides. I just went out to slides.google.com. I created a new template. I did go in because I want this to be something that's printable instead of just being a slide. I wanted to make sure that it was the right size. So you go into File, Page Setup, and just go to the custom size and change the size to 8.5 by 11, and then hit Apply. Now, what I'm going to do is make this slide set available to you, and you'll be able to click on this link and copy this design. Not that you want to use it, but it will at least give you something that you can look at and modify from. Once you decide what kind of design that you want, and you may want to go out to Etsy and have somebody design something for you. You can, there's lots of possibilities of designs for lots of different things. I was just doing last night, I was doing some screenshots of things that might be useful, and basically being able to put some data, some timeline data, the dates of important dates or purchase price, escrow. I mean, you can, whatever you think the client might find value in is something that we can put in here. Now, you might have this as a 2-pager. You might have, and I should have probably went in, maybe I will go ahead and add some more to this, but maybe this is where you want to put some of the party members. Who's the lender? Who's the title and escrow people? Who are the party members that are part of this contract? And that data could be pulled from the People tab of Realvolve. In this case, I'm just pulling the mailing name of the buyers. Who is this going to be sent to. And, you know, if you're representing the seller, you could do one for the sellers and do different timelines and stuff for them. You're officially under contract. Please keep this timeline available for reference of important dates. And then list it out. And I just grabbed some important dates. These aren't necessarily the ones you would use. Figure out which ones you would use and go about it. Now, what you can do, let me, once you get access to this, this is kind of what I did. Created again, it's a Google slide. It's a, you know, fairly robust editor that you can do different stuff with. But, you know, if you wanted to go in there and make changes to the colors or whatever, click on the little box, go to the colors, say I want it orange instead of blue. Maybe I want different fonts. You do you know, you make it however you want it to look. Put in the fields, the text, the values. For the merge fields in here, you can make up your own merge fields. You don't have to rely on a particular name that we have it in Realvolve. You just put in the way Google Slides does this is they just put in curly squiggly braces instead of in Realvolve we use square braces. Google uses the curly braces, the shift of the square braces. And type in some text that makes sense in there. I would probably put it all lowercase, no spaces or anything, but then end curly braces. So it's just 2 curly braces on each side. Whenever you do this, and whenever we set this process up through the webhook piece, it will go in and find every merge field that you've defined and then give you the opportunity to fill those in. And I'm going to show you how that's done. But in this case, I just went in, created a title, put in some basic information. I kind of used one of those designs from Etsy just to kind of give a visual look and feel, put in this fictitious Realvolve Realty and Mark Stepp as being the real estate agent. As everybody knows, I am not, but I play one on TV. In this case, you make the design. Okay, so let me just pull that off to the side. You guys can pull this, make the changes as you see fit. So,
quick question, Mark.
Yes, go ahead.
I know I can, may I? Can we not do this in a template in Realvolve? Or is this just much easier?
You can. It's much easier in Google Sheets, but absolutely, if you wanted to create this as a, you know, the nice thing about slides is it has lots of different graphical options. Now you could definitely put this in as a template and email it. In this case, I actually want something that's created to print and even make into a graphic so that maybe I send it through Messenger or something. You know, I can do lots of different things with it besides just printing it. But absolutely, you could do this same type of thing in a template within our template editor. I just think it's a lot more difficult adding the gradient colors and stuff like that, which you may not want. Maybe you just want solid colors. This type of thing can be done in the template. It's just in HTML, it's much more difficult. In this case, I'm just going through and making the changes that's appropriate for it. Then what you can do is you can go out to Zapier. You know, Zapier is our friend because it has some built-in webhook and connectivity pieces. Now, there's 2 ways that you can create a new Zap in Zapier. You can go out to Zapier, you can click on the little create button, or whenever you first come in, it'll give you an option, and typically it just shows you the first 2 options here of connect this app with this one. And what I did is I went in and I said, okay, connect the Webhooks by Zapier app with the Google Slides app. And whenever you fill those 2 in, then it opens up this bottom section here and it says, okay, in Webhooks, when this happens, and it's the trigger part of a Zap, it's the thing that triggers it, that starts it, that gets it moving. In this case, we want catch hook, and catch hook is basically saying if I've caught some data, if I've gotten that information from this webhook URL, I want to do something with it. And then over here, it says, what do you want to do with it? And in this case, I want to create a presentation in Google Slides from a template. And any slide can be a template, but if you've got slides that have the merge fields, it will fill in the values of those merge fields for you. So once you fill in those items, you click on Try It, or if you come up here and click on Create Zap, either one, it starts going through the process. Now, if you chose Create Zap and you say, well, I want to do a webhook, you can click on Webhook by Zapier, select that. It's the same thing as what we did earlier on one screen. This kind of takes you through the multiple screen option as well. And you might get to this point whenever you're just kind of editing through anyway. So I wanted to show these screens because as you're editing your zaps, it will show all these options. You just don't necessarily see. It does skip over some of them if you use that first screen. We do want the catch hook. Again, that just tells the system that if data comes in, we want to catch it. We want to use it somehow. So because it's a catch hook, it knows, hey, you, the user, need to know what that webhook URL is. So Zapier gives us this custom webhook URL, just a big sling of numbers that mean absolutely nothing other than it's a location in Zapier's infrastructure that allows you to send data to it. So you'll come over here, click on the copy button, and copy that URL because you're going to need it within Realvolve. You can just copy it to your clipboard. So what you're going to do is go back to Realvolve. You're going to go to one of your closing workflows of some sort. You're under contract to close, whatever it is that you want to do. In this case, I'm actually talking about a buyer side. So if you've got them differentiated between buyer side and seller side, you may want to set up different hooks, different data being sent to each of them and presented. But in this case, I created an activity called Create Under Contract Timeline. You can assign it to whomever, you can schedule it for whenever, at whatever point you want this activity to show up in your timeline in Realvolve, you set that up. But we want to create an action for it, an automation, something that's done automatically for us so we don't have to do it, okay? In this case, we're going to go down here and click on the Create Action, give it a title. In this case, I just typed in Create Under Contract Timeline. Normally, whenever you're in this area, it defaults to showing the send a message. And I just closed that up for this screenshot, but you can do the same thing. But there's a section down here called Webhook, and you're going to click on the little arrow. In this case, it's already down, so it's showing the up to close it, but you'll click on the arrow so that it opens up and shows you the Webhook settings area, in which case the screen that we had copied on, this URL, we want to paste that into this box here. And whenever you paste it in, it now knows, hey, this is the address I want to send data to. And you can even click on the button that says Send Sample Data. You can go ahead and do that. So it sends the data and it makes it available. One kind of warning or note, we're working with Zapier to try to figure this one out. We're sending a lot of data in the sample piece. And for some reason, Zapier isn't displaying all of it. It may just be some kind of limitation as far as what they allow to display. So whenever after you've sent the sample data, there could be, not always, but there could be fields that aren't showing up. And if they don't show up, you may need to go to an actual transaction or an actual property, run this workflow to actually get real data, because with the sample data, we blast a lot of data out there just to give you availability of all the different fields that are available. Whenever you're doing it for your own transaction, it's a much reduced amount of data and you don't have to worry about it as much. We click on the Send Sample Data, and that then takes the data in Realvolve, the sample data in this case, and throws it to that that webhook, and it catches it. And at that point, you can click on the button that says test trigger. It will go through then and make sure the data is there. If for some reason it's not there, could be that it's just caught up in a queue and Zapier's waiting for it to show up. It'll eventually show up. You click on the test trigger and it'll come back and it'll say, hey, we found a request, your data, and here's sample information, and it would show that data. We have, and again, I will make these slides available to you. There'll be a list here. You can click on this list of all the different merge fields that are available. If you ever wanted to know how many fields there are available in Realvolve, you can click on this and it'll give you all the Zapier merge fields that we have available. Once you've tested it and everything's good, then it's just a matter of setting up the action. Whenever that data comes in, what are we going to do with it? Well, in this case, we want to create the presentation from the template. So the action, we had chosen it on that front screen. We'd already chosen it. If you do it step by step instead, make sure that you choose the create presentation from template and then click on continue. It'll then say, okay, which Google account are we using? And you need to either select the Google account if you've already got one selected. Otherwise, it'll have you log in and do the authentication through Google to make sure that you get the right account. But you set up your Google Slides account and then click on continue. Now, this is where the fun part begins. What it does is it goes out and it says, okay, what's the title of this presentation that we're going to make? And the title of this can be any series of words or merge fields or whatever. And what I did was I created the title of this as being under contract timeline for, the words are typed in there, and then a merge field. In this case, I'm using the transaction people. I'm looking under the people tab of a transaction, and I'm looking for the buyer's mailing name. Who is the buyer that's in the people tab of the transaction? In which case, it would put in there John and Mary Smith or Joe Schmo, whatever. It's going to create a new presentation with a specific name on it of, in this case, the buyer, so that I know who it goes to and once it's created. The shared piece, don't worry about it. You can leave it blank. But it does need to know what's the presentation template that you're going to base this off of. And what you're going to do is select the name that you created. And if you renamed my template, whatever that name is, if you created your own, whatever it is, you could have multiple different templates. Choose the right one for this particular presentation. But it'll be in your list. You just click on it and select it from the list. And then once it selects it, then it'll open up more fields on the next little tab of all those different merge fields that are contained in this template. So we've got purchase price, escrow deposit, we've got earnest due, all these different merge fields that are available. It will start listing them as they are on that presentation. So then you go in and you start saying, which fields do I want to fill in these merge fields with from within Realvolve that came from that webhook? From step 1, the webhook step, I'm going to fill in the mailing name with my buyer mailing name. I'm going to fill in my purchase price with the transaction sales price, escrow deposit, all the different fields, the address. You go through and you decide which fields, based off of what you decided you wanted to put in the important fields, important date fields, and the names that you've given them, that you just go in there and you select the appropriate field. All the different fields that are part of Realvolve are there. You just got to select them. Now, going back to that original question, if for some reason it's not showing up here, the field's there and it's just not showing up, it is possible that because you're using the sample data, it maxed out the limit until Zapier shows more of the fields available. What you might need to do is actually go to an actual property or transaction, run that workflow and run that action to get real data instead of the sample data in there. I'll show you how that's done, but you can go through and just kind of see how that's laid out. Fill in all your fields. Once you fill in all the fields, then you click on the continue button. And once you click on continue, it's going to go in there and say, okay, what are some of the fields that I filled in? What are some of the values that I filled in? And just kind of give you a whole list of things. The main thing that we want to look at is that here at the very top of this is test was successful. If test was not successful, something didn't work right, we need to figure out what it is and fix it. But this is fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of making sure everything was filled in. The one thing, whenever I ran this the first time, I selected the wrong date fields in a couple of these. I had dates filled in, but I selected the wrong field in the merge list here. And because it was the wrong field, it didn't have a value. My presentation just didn't have the right values in it. So be cautious of that. It's something, but once it is set up, you don't have to worry about it. It's always there. It's always set up, and you're filling in the same fields that you always fill in anyway. Why not make it a presentation and make it available? Once you hit the test was successful, you can retest and continue. Otherwise, you can close. But basically, you got to make sure that this Zap is turned on and active. And once you hit retest and continue, then it'll be good. Whenever you run that test, it will show you, if you go into your Google Drive, it will show you a version of that presentation that you just created. You can just double click on it and open it up and then, look at it and see what it looks like. So in this case, the under contract timeline for Joe and Mary Buyer, it's the mailing name of the buyer field that I put in there, and the values of the fields that are available. So it fills in all the information. At that point, then, you've got a working piece. So what you can do is go to your transaction, start that workflow, whatever workflow you normally start, but you've added this one extra step to that workflow now. And if you want to, you can create this just as a separate, its own little workflow and start it on some of your existing ones. Maybe you want to kind of catch it up. You can just kind of start this one activity as a workflow for some existing ones that you've got running. But ultimately, the idea here is during that workflow process, that closing process, at some point you want to send or create the under contract timeline. You check that off and then hit run. Whenever you hit run, then it goes out and it creates that template out on Google. It's going to have the name of the buyers in there. And then you can go in, and let me just show you this. This is kind of the end result again. Under contract timeline for Joe and Mary Buyer. I could, if I wanted to, just come over here and say, I want to do a download to a PNG file or a PDF file. And I just want to send it to them as a PDF file. Make that available to whatever, for them to do stuff. So you can do some really crazy stuff now, some really cool stuff that allow you to create the presentations. Now, this doesn't have to be just a one-page presentation either. You can create multiple pages. Again, maybe we want to have a second page, and I'll probably do this as well for this template sometime this week, where I'll go ahead and add maybe the party members, the transaction coordinator information, the buyer and seller agents, the lender, the title, the escrow, the attorneys, whatever it is that you use in your party members that the buyer might want to know and have access to phone numbers and stuff. Put that as a second page on this. and make that available. Maybe you've got some other closing presentation that you do, or a listing. I mean, if you're doing a listing presentation, you can do the exact same thing, but you're going to be doing it from the property side. What are some of the marketing milestones, the different things as far as getting it into MLS? You could create any kind of timeline for important dates that you want your buyers to know about. And then at that point, they can reference this at any point. And maybe you want to create a page of maybe your preferred vendors and create some other piece that's in there that allows them to have access to all this data in a presentation. You click and create this, and then all you need to do is go in and print it or create as a PDF or a PNG, JPEG, whatever, and it's available. Use it however you want. That makes sense, guys?
Yeah. Now, what a good thing to do would be to download it and save it in the files and label it as something on one of your steps, and then it automatically would go. Is there any step you can do in the workflow that would, when you say go to the webhook and do this, that it'll make it save it in the files and tag it? Or do you have to physically do that?
So,
yet your admin, because you need to be prospecting, showing property and
absolutely. Let your admin do that part. But we are working on adding a couple of additional fields, one of which I didn't put in there originally, but after doing this last night, it's like I had the exact same thought that you're having, is why not put this into the files tab of that property or transaction? And because let me just go to let's go here. In this property or transaction or whatever it is that you've got, this address right here, you could actually send the email or send an email with this as an attachment to this email address that's listed up here at the top. We don't currently have that as a merge field in the webhook, but we're going to add that to the system. So you could actually send, as another step in the Zap, send that presentation to that email address, and it would automatically decouple it and put it into the files tab for you. That's one of the advantages of using that merge field, is if it has attachments, those attachments get automatically thrown into the files tab.
Because that something like that, to me, not only a timeline, but all the parties available. So with one email, that could go to the lender, the title attorney, listing agent, selling agent, and both admin, as well as the broker. And boom, everybody's got the whole timeline available in one fell swoop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do have templates, some transaction templates in the email section already kind of for that. But again, this just makes it, a much prettier looking design, PDF or, whatever that could be utilized, printed easily and put somewhere that just really stands out for you guys as agents, making you look more professional.
Well, it also helps with all kind of personality types, because a direct person is going to go, oh, bullet points, this is good. And the C person will be going, oh, everything is here. And the I person will go, oh, isn't it pretty? And then the S will be, oh, this is cool. Yeah. So pretty. Good job. Sorry.
Love how you
I digress. Down a rabbit hole. Sorry.
You're good. So ultimately, it's just a matter of every time this workflow comes up, you click on the run option and it goes out and it creates it. And that's it. I mean, that's the benefit of a webhook, is just allowing that work to be done. Now, I don't know how long it might take. If somebody had this as a template in, say, Canva or something, you pull it up in Canva, then you're having to go in and, look up the fields in your record, type in the fields. What am I being, would it take 5 minutes to do that? I mean, depending on what your talent is in Canva or whatever, 2 to 5 minutes, something like that. But that's 2 to 5 minutes you don't have to spend. You can have the system do it for you. You're spending the time up front to design it, to create it, put it into the system, and then you call it done. It's there from that point forward. Now you can systematize. Now you can automate, and now you can scale your business and be able to bring in more clients, being able to process more clients because you've freed up time. And that's what I'm all about. So that's what I wanted to show today. If there's any questions on this, I'd be happy to kind of go over the questions on this. If you've got other questions, we can certainly go over that as well. Anybody, anything?
Yeah. My question is, do you have this step-by-step in the training library so people can, or do they need to go on office hours to try to get a recording?
So
because I'd like to be able to give this to some admin and some people, because this ain't my bailiwick.
Yeah. So switch account. Yeah. So one of the things that I do on office hours, and again, last week's was a miss just because it didn't record well, but there is a playlist here for Realvolve office hours, and all of the office hours are listed here for different things. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the webhook ones that I've been doing recently, and you just go through and watch those there. We do also post them in the Facebook community, so you have access to those as well. And as I'm building these, I'm also going to be building, and I've done a few of them, I haven't done them all yet, more in just the help. So if you go to help.realvolve.com and just search webhook, there's some information there as well.
Yeah, because one of the things I'm thinking is with a lot of, and this is, individual, my coaching clients that are using this, they go, okay, I don't know how to do it. And so the whole thing in the training, they worry about the training. And of course they have the patience of a boiling tea kettle. So just wondering if, where they go. So this is the Realvolve. You make it on Realvolve office hours.
Yeah. So
the YouTube channel. I just want to make it simple for a simple mind.
Yeah. If you just go into, just do a search in YouTube Realvolve, and it'll come to our channel. We do have a section. We've got a whole section of videos, and it'll put them in. If you just go to the video side, it'll just show you all the most recent videos that we've put in, which are the office hours for the most part there. But I also have the entire playlist where I put all the office hours in there as well.
That's awesome. That is just like so awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a picture of that.
If you go to youtube.com/ I think it says Realvolve Training, but you can go to Realvolve Training / videos, whatever.
Well, yeah, I just didn't know how much of this might be in there.
Yeah, we've got lots and lots of videos for lots of things. Some of them are webinars that we've done, but there's a lot of training in here as well for different things. I've put a lot in there, and also in the playlists, if there's certain people that let's see, all playlists, saved playlists. Now, some of these actually are mine, so I'm not sure why that's showing that way. But if you go into the main screen of Realvolve, you'll see all that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
A couple questions for you. So Zapier is sort of the main. I guess Zapier is sort of the main interface between webhook. Like, is there other stuff than Zapier you would be using webhooks with?
There are lots of other ones. Like Tray.io is similar to Zapier. You could use if this then that.
Okay.
The IFTTT. What I would almost do is do a search for webhook service provider, and
right.
There's lots of them out there. On Zapier they do charge for theirs, but other ones don't necessarily.
I do. Sorry, I do have an account with Zapier. I'd probably continue to use it, but so you need some sort of interface, then you couldn't go directly to Google Slides, for example, or there has to be the intermediary.
The nice thing about, now there could be some services that they just have their own webhook, so you could just send data straight to their service. I did a training on handwritten cards through Zapier. It was almost the exact same thing. You set up a hook through webhook URL, and then you choose an action, and the action being handwritten cards or delighted. Last week we did the delighted satisfaction surveys, and virtually any service that is connected to Zapier, you can create something that, if they've got some kind of action, you can hook that up. But a lot of services have their own webhook, and if they have their own webhook, you can just send that data straight to them and do it that way, and they may not even charge you, anything for that. It just depends on what the service is. But webhooks are pretty common these days because people want to integrate with other applications. And the really nice thing about doing this within Realvolve is now you can systematize it. You can put it into your processes so that it just gets done automatic every time.
So I had a lot of, through Zapier Parser, I had a lot of sort of emails going out through Realvolve, parsing the data, trying to import stuff into Google Sheets and so on. So this would be replacing all of that.
It makes that process so much easier because you don't have to worry about the parser screwing up. You don't have to worry about creating the templates, all that kind of stuff. You're just using webhook URL, and it draws that data. Basically, we're sending it a JSON packet of information that contains the name of the field and the value of the field, and whatever field that you need should be in there. Plus, something that I'll show this. This is kind of like more advanced stuff, I guess, but webhook. It is important for you to know. Let's just say for let's grab one. It doesn't really matter which one. Whenever you're doing, so this one here, I wanted to print a Google Doc and also an envelope as part of an action. So I create the Google Doc, I create the envelope, and the webhook draws the data, creates the correct document, all that kind of stuff. So everything is hunky-dory there. But there may be some service that you use that you want to also send additional data that's not necessarily in Realvolve, but it's always the same for this particular action. And an example of that might be you're wanting to send a postcard or a handwritten note to somebody, and you set up one generic Zap to send the note, but different Zaps, different actions, you want to send different types of notes. Maybe in this case, you want to send a thank you versus something else. And what you can do, actually, I already have it on here, is you can specify with a little question mark, like this is the URL, this is the webhook URL that you would normally send, this HTTP hooks, blah, 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 all the way to the end of this, and it goes with a little backslash. But if you put in a question mark in a URL, it's basically saying, hey, from this point forward, I've got some extra data. I've got some extra information that you may want to know. In which case you could say, I want to send the card ID. Which card from handwritten cards do I want to send? And its ID is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this particular one. And maybe there's a different one with, a Mickey Mouse on it that's a thank you. I want to send it as, 5, 6, 7, 8 card ID, whatever. So you could use the same thank you message, but with a different card being printed based off of extra stuff that you put in here. So after you put a little question mark, you put in a field value. If there's more than one field, you do have to use the ampersand sign, which is and again, this may be too too advanced, but maybe I want to send some other thing like signature. I should just say SIG ID equal to some number. And with handwritten cards, what you can do is you can specify a type of card. You can also specify a type of handwriting. Do I want to use the Dave version that has, a special looking D on it or something, where a Sally handwriting has different font? And you could change your font based off of this. Well, that's not some kind of data that we would have in Realvolve, but you can pass it in through this URL. So even if you've got some other service that beyond Zapier, maybe they've got their own webhook, but they need certain data being sent to them, maybe your account ID or something like that, you could pass in that extra data to them based off of the URL. And I may have just blown everybody away there with all that, and I apologize, but just let you know it's there.
That's what I want. That's great to hear. So this is kind of additive, like whatever package Realvolve sends, this just adds it, appends it to the package. Correct. And you've got an extra couple of selections to work with, 1 or 2 or 5.
Correct.
Obviously, I would assume you have to change the ID. It can't be the same as something Realvolve has already sent, or it would probably confuse the system.
True. Yeah, you'd want to make sure it's unique. But pretty much everything that we've got is prefixed with either contact, property, or escrow. We originally started everything in Realvolve. The database is actually called escrow instead of transaction, but it is the same thing.
And Mark, the package that Realvolve sends it sounds like it's pretty comprehensive, which is why Zapier is kind of having some problem with it. If there was some information, like it would be interesting, I guess. I was originally assuming when I was trying to figure this out that you had to put in merge fields into the webhook append field, but it sounds like that's not necessary.
It's not necessary at all. What we do is we just kind of blast all the information in there for you, so you don't have to know which merge fields until you actually start needing them in the templates that you're using, and then you just use the appropriate one that's available. So this is kind of a list of all the different merge fields for the contact side. Let me make this a little smaller so I can change. There's a property section, and then there's a transaction section. And the transaction section, I mean, there's lots of date fields. There's lots of party member fields. In this, I didn't list out every party member type, but whatever, if it's, the seller, the buyer to, whatever, every one of them have these fields available to them.
Okay. If I wanted to send information to Realvolve, I guess that's coming.
Yeah, the only thing that we have in options on that case is we do have the contact Zap, so you can bring in contacts in Realvolve. We don't have Zap set up for properties and transactions yet. That's something we're working on. There's some things that we've got to get completed first. But we do have our API. So if you've got some really advanced possibilities of things that you want to create, you've got some kind of engineering background or whatever, you can use our APIs to send that data. And you'd be able to do the same type of thing. It's a little bit different method, but it is there.
I'd have to hire an engineer.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But it's the benefit, and again, I got so excited about this particular aspect. This was something I thought up. I think it was 2017 or 18 whenever I wanted this added, and we just never did it. And I finally convinced everybody that we needed this, and it's just like, this opens up so many things that you guys can do as part of your processes, your closing process, your listing process, and anything you want to create and make and do, you can now pretty much do it. It makes it so much more powerful. Yes, there's setup. Yes, there's some definitions of things that you need to do, but it's that investing in your business one time so that you can reap the rewards multiple times thereafter. So instead of taking 5 minutes to create this manually. You create this and one time, and then use it over and over and over again. Any other questions? Thank you for that question, Andrew. Bernie, anything? You're over there smiling away.
Am I unmuted?
There you go. There you go. There we go.
There we go. Sorry, yeah, I came in late to the meeting, Mark, but I'm catching up now, and I see that you've created this great document in Google Docs here. So I think Google Slides, but yeah, it's a very awesome addition to the arsenal that we have in Realvolve now. We're using these webhooks, so I'm still learning it and getting used to it, but hopefully in the not too distant future I'll have it down.
Awesome. Well,
good deal. Okay,
if there's no other questions, I'm available for a few more minutes if anybody has any other questions, but kind of going once, going twice. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for attending today. If there's anything particular that you would like to see, like I said, this is cropped up yesterday. It's like, I think I can make this pretty quickly. So, I just kind of slung this together. It's not, probably how you would want to have it look, but it's certainly something that you can make and modify and do however you want. But, anything that you guys can kind of conceive, sling it my way, and let's see what we can do, and maybe make that part of an office hours training and make your lives better. That's my whole goal, is to help you guys as agents, as trainers too, Julie, to be able to, do your business better and more efficiently. So, all right, guys, awesome. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you next week. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. See ya.